Welcome to the Father on Purpose podcast, featuring author and ministry leader Kent Evans and business executive and military veteran Lawson Brown. This is a show for you, Dad. You want to be a godly and intentional father. Unfortunately, you've turned to these two knuckleheads for help. Let us know how that works out for you. Before we begin, remember this: you are not a father on accident. So go be a father on purpose. Please welcome your hosts, Kent and Lawson.
Hey, Dad, have you ever walked through a tough time? Well, of course you have. Have your kids ever walked through a tough time? Of course they have. At the moment they or you were walking through that tough time, were you able to spot, or were they able to spot, the bigger narrative and have some perspective in the moment? Or were you just mired down with the immediate pressure of what was going on? That's what we're going to talk about on today's show, hoping to arm dads with this capacity, as well as the ability to help our kids have the same capacity. Lawson, good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, that's a big question, man. And have you ever walked through a tough time? You can just feel thousands of dads' heads shaking up and down. Yeah, this world is tough. Let's get into it.
Well, I want to tell a quick story that'll frame it. But before I do, we have a big announcement to make. Like, maybe, Hunter, if you don't mind, go out and source some cheese ball drum roll sound and then drop that in right now. There we go. That's a great drum roll. Thank you. I mean, I can't really hear anything, but I bet Hunter did a great job. And there's a really good drum roll right now. We have a brand new sponsor of the podcast, and we're super pumped, because not only is this company that's going to help underwrite some of the shows and, defray some of the cost of producing the shows, more so than that, we love the leader of this company and we love their products. I have two of their products on my desk right this split second. The company's called Range Leather, and the owner is Kyle Koster. We have gotten to know Kyle over the last 6 months, and what a great guy. Runs a really cool company, Laramie, Wyoming. Go check out rangeleather.com. And when you do, use this code MJ, like manhood journey, MJ15, MJ15, and you will get 15% off of your order. What's more, if you use that code, it will let the leaders of that company know that we sent you and that you are a faithful, engaged, productive member of the Father on Purpose community, which, if that happens, maybe Kyle sends me like a free hat or something. That would be super cool. So in the end,
they do have good looking hats.
They got great looking hats.
I put an order in this morning.
Did you?
Yeah. Olivia's birthday is coming up. She doesn't know this. And by the time we publish, I think her birthday will have come and gone, but she wanted one of the little side body bags.
Wow. Fancy schmancy. And did you use the MJ15?
Did I ever? Of course. Yeah.
Did I ever?
Did I ever?
I would never pass up 15 free percentages. So please do that. We love Kyle. We love Range Leather. Go support that business as a thank you to them supporting this podcast. So Lawson, today, to get us kind of moving in the direction of this idea of how we walk through tough times, and how during those tough times, it can be really tempting to focus just on the immediate thing right in front of you. And sometimes you have to, right? You got a leak and you got to go fix the leak, or the roof has a hole in it. There's moments, or, you break your femur. It's no time to sit there and think about the meaning of life. Like, you got to get to the hospital. But real quick story. My son was given something. I don't want to get too many details, because it was a really nice gift, but he was given something of immense value, thousands and thousands of dollars. It might rhyme with the word automobile. And right when he was given this gift, within hours of taking possession of it, he noticed something was amiss, and so he went to a mechanic when he got the automobile home, and they said, "Man, you got a bunch of problems with this car." So this thing that was a gift all of a sudden turned into a liability. And then there was going to be thousands of dollars of needed repairs. And he said, "Well, I really can't afford that right now. I mean, what with me not owning this a week ago and all." And so he just did the bare basics and made like a $600 repair that was like a safety issue, needed to happen right away. Within hours of making this $600 investment in a car that he didn't even really want to buy to begin with. He was hit in an intersection by a hit and run driver.
Oh my gosh.
Thankfully, it was basically harmless, other than it wrecked the car that he had just put $600 into.
Right.
So you go from day one, hey, this is going to be great, to, day 8, you take possession. Day 8.5, it's wrecked. Fortunately, 2 people behind the errant hit and run driver pulled over and engaged with my son and said, hey, we saw everything.
Yeah.
Wasn't your fault. We got his license number. I was like, no
nice.
way. And so all that happened. So then the police tell him, you're fine. Leave your car here in the median. We'll get it towed. Don't worry about it. Then the next thing you know, they had gotten their wires crossed. His car got impounded, and he got a parking ticket for having left it in the median. It was like this roller coaster of 2 weeks of, you have got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And then the insurance company was kind of like, well, no coverage and hit and run. We don't know. And then that flip-flopped all the way to no problem. We got it. And so probably the way this thing's all going to work out is he's going to be fine. He's going to basically have acquired an automobile for pennies on the dollar. And he is really happy with the way this thing's going to work out. However, there was a few day stretch there when it looked pretty bumpy for him financially. And I had,
how'd he handle it?
Well, I gotta say, I was really impressed. He did a really good job. In fact, when he called me, goes, hey, well, got some news. And I said, okay, what's that? He said, I'm in an intersection right now, and a car just hit me and took off. And I'm like, whoa, really? Is everybody okay? First thing you care about is safety, and is everything okay? And once we got past that, it was like, can you believe this? Like 8 hours ago, I was at a mechanic paying for something to be fixed in this car that literally just got smashed into. And I said, well, Alex, it's now the time for me to give you one of the adult speeches I'm going to give you. And he kind of laughed and he goes, which speech is this? And I said, it's the speech called Money Problems and Car Problems are 2 of the best kinds of problems in life. Like for real, on the grand scheme of your life problems.
Okay, right.
Problems relating to things that deal with math, that you just need numbers to fix, are usually far better. And he goes, I know. He goes, nobody's hurt. I'm not going to the hospital. I'm not visiting somebody in the hospital. My wife, Gracie, wasn't in the passenger seat. That'd have been a problem. And so we just rejoiced in the moment that, in the grand scheme of things, fixing cars, you bend the metal back, you pay the money, the car is going to be okay. Things like finances, cars, those kind of things. You get into things like health, major health challenges, death of a loved one. You get into things like relationship challenges, estrangement, people don't talk to each other, there's hatred and strife and enmity. Those things can't be fixed with time and money. Those are different. And so we had that moment, and I texted him something. And this is I tell that whole story to get to kind of this text that I sent him, which is going to make me sound like I'm a really brilliant dad, but it's because someone years ago gave this to me. His name is Greg, and he gave me the exact same advice in the midst of when we were starting Manhood Journey Up. And it goes like this. I just said, hey, bro, crazy last 10 days, the highs and lows of life. And then I said, wow, does this may sound, consider asking God what he wants to do in and through you with all this. Look for the bigger narrative and the work he is doing. He will reveal it. And so as we're walking through trials, as our kids are walking through trials, you've got to address the issues, right? As I said, if you got a broken leg, you don't just sit around pondering the meaning of life. Having said that, during the trial, can we as the dad, can we as the friend, can we as the husband help people in the midst of the trial look for the bigger narrative? Through all this, what's something God wanted to do in my son's heart and mind? Teach him not to rely on things, teach him that he will come alongside us in our trials, be grateful for the fact that no one was hurt. What is the thing that God's doing? And so I'll bet you, as you said, Lawson, of the dads listening, there's thousands of dads listening, far as we know. And if I say, what trial are you going through right now? Take a moment and pause, as you're working out, as you're cutting the grass or driving to work. What is the trial that you're going through right now? And kind of for a moment, set the trial up on the shelf and just write on the label, financial pressure or, whatever it is. And for a moment, don't think about the trial. Instead, think about what is it you think God might be able to teach you or show you or grow in you during this trial. And when that stuff starts to happen as a knee-jerk kind of reflex to the curveballs that life throws us, you start to find not only a greater peace during the trial, but you start to like almost like a rag that you squeeze the water out of, you start to get a lot more value and a lot more growth out of the trial if we're looking for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about perspective. I like how Olivia says sometimes she talks about zooming out, like in that situation when you're right up looking at it at the in the moment. It's hard to do what you described, which was to see what God's got planned for you, or maybe what you're already beginning to grow from within that situation. And it does help. It helps to try your best to zoom out and change your perspective to help see it from a kind of a higher level. And it is a real challenge sometimes when you're in the middle of something to do what your son did. I'm super proud of him that even in those moments, he was like, it's going to work out, or how he was able to latch on to that attitude of this right here, this moment right here is going to be something that we are going to get through. This is not the end of the world. Nobody got hurt. Way to go, man. What that is a proud dad moment, I'm sure. Because even as dads, sometimes we don't handle things near as well as he maybe did in that moment. And I was like super proud of Olivia. A couple times within the last 4 to 6 months, she's come upon some things in her life, and I just love that she has got this attitude of, well, let me take a breath here for a moment and zoom out and see, like, what am I missing? Yeah. And it is, you said something about, to in the moment, try to realize what exactly it is that God is doing. And you may not be able to see that right then in that moment. You may have to do, some pausing and let me, pray about this for just, let me stop. Let me stop. Yeah. I'm getting caught up in this. Take a breath and then ask, will you use this? I don't know what you're doing here, God.
Yeah.
Will you use this, please? And maybe help clarify for me when the time is right, what it is that you want to come from this. There are some really different situations. I know, sure. I know what you mean about money problems are some of the best problems to have. That's different than, a illness, like a major disease or something like that. People would give all their money away to be healed. Or the death of your spouse, or, heaven forbid, the death of a child. Compared to a money issue, what would your choice be? Of course, it's going to be, give me the money problem. Right. So I get where you're coming from on that. But there are also some times where, the money issue, or something that's maybe not as traumatic as an illness or a death, or some major deep wound from a relational issue. It doesn't have to be a problem that feels overwhelming to understand and to gain benefit from what God's doing in that moment or in that Absolutely. Situation. It can be, something that you're just dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and you're working through, and you say, God, I'm not exactly sure what to do or what to say or how to deal with this. And so I'm going to reach my hand up, and will you just take my hand and walk with me as I go through this? Maybe he doesn't, even necessarily step in and give you, some major, beautiful, blessed insight, but it just helps to know that you're holding his hand. What's going on, dads? Check this out. Hey, in the world of fatherhood, balancing style and functionality is key, right? Range Leather gets it, offering products like the sleek Elbert wallet and the American flag hat, which is on the way to this guy. It's perfect for dads on the move. Made from the finest Horween leather, Range's products don't just look good, they are built to accompany you through every dad duty with elegance and resilience. Snag your next dad essential at rangeleather.com and save 15% when you use code MJ15 at checkout. Head to rangeleather.com to get your swag. That's RANGE leather.com.
Yeah, like if I look at some of the trials, if you want to even call them that, which I think is way too aggressive of a word, the things that I've been wrestling with lately, I'll give you one good example. April and I were talking the other night, and I just said, "Hey, do you hear that sound?" And I've kind of conditioned her. She knows. She goes, "What sound?" And I said, "That's the sound of me dropping 1,000 balls, because there are so many things I am not getting done." And she said, "Well, that's me too." I said, "Oh, wait, maybe that's the sound I'm hearing, is you dropping a bunch of balls." But for real, like the good news, we're recording this in March of 2024. The good news, for example, for me at work, right, which this is my work, Manhood Journey, podcast, emails, that kind of life. The good news is we have really good momentum, and there's a lot of great things happening at Manhood Journey. We're super excited, and God's bringing us a lot of opportunity and favor and all that. What that's also translating to is there's a lot of people I'm not getting back to in a timely manner. There are a number of people who are waiting for direction on something from me, and they just ain't going to get it for a while. I got to choose, do I do the podcast, or do I, email that person who is waiting on me for something, and I'm going to do the podcast. So like I'm making all these daily choices, and I'm asking God in the middle of that. Again, that is a minor, like a lot of guys in tough situations would love to trade problems with me right now, because that's one of my problems. And you go, that's not even really a problem, but it is on my mind. It is a thing I think about every day. And one of the things I do say to God often is, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do to me? How do you want me to be different when this problem is over? And like, as an example, Lawson, one of the things he wants me to be able to be different in is he wants me to be more patient. He wants me to not push so hard. Because when you know what he does in order to make some of that happen, number one, he slows a bunch of stuff down. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
for that.
We've talked about that before. I think you were the one who said, be careful when you ask for patience.
Yeah. And number two, I believe if he wants you to learn the lesson, that you are not in control, that you can't make it go faster just because of sheer willpower. If he wants you to learn that lesson, one of the things that will happen is stuff you used to put your hand to that used to move the needle, don't move the needle anymore. Like this, I used to use this tactic and do that thing, and stuff happened.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And you do that thing again, and you're looking, nothing happens. And it's like, because God's going, look, I could give you the fruit however I want. He says, I create light and I create darkness. Like, he's like, he can do whatever he wants. And sometimes he takes the efficacy away from some of our activity so that we go, shoot, I'm just not in control, am I? And then he goes, okay, now that you've learned that lesson, fine, I'll turn the water back on. Like, that's the way sometimes it seems to work, right?
I got you. I thought you were saying like he takes the efficacy away because you've learned that part. You've learned that, and you've learned to, and so now he's going to give you a new tool or a new way of thinking. But I think what you actually landed on is a little more right, that he takes that away so that we maybe struggle a little bit, and in the struggle get to a point where we go, okay, I'm clearly unable, and so I'm not going to be able to do this. This one's going to be on him.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I worked with a really capable. This person still is very capable. It sounds like it's all past tense. A very capable business executive. And this guy would confide in me from time to time about various challenges in the organization. And one day he walks into my office and he shuts the door, and I'm like, well, that's going to be interesting. And he goes, hey, this is my challenge. And he outlines in 5 minutes this kind of challenge that he has. And I'd known him for several years at the time. And I just said, well, you finally found it, didn't you? And he kind of laughed and goes, all right, what do you mean? And I go, you finally found a challenge that you can't just muscle your way through.
Right.
And we laughed about it because he was, he'd run some businesses and done a lot of, made a lot of money. And he was like, man, that's right. Because the nature of this particular challenge was one where other stuff in the market just had to break his way. Like factors were way out of his control. And he'd finally risen to the point in an organization where he couldn't just go and, start making calls and running reports and doing analysis and fix the problem, because the problem was bigger than he could fix. It wasn't the very first time, but it was, he hadn't bumped into that many problems before then. And we're all going to hit those. We're going to hit those. You're either in the middle of one right now, or you just came out of one, or you're headed to one. Like, God's going to put things in your life that are bigger than you can handle, so that you will rely on him. Like,
Right.
let me share a Bible verse I pretty much memorized. I went to grab it just to make sure I quote it right, but I could say this one at 3 a.m. if you woke me up out of a dead sleep. Isaiah 26:3. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. This is Isaiah 26:3. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. And so what I love to do with a verse like that is kind of walk my way through it backward. And here's what I mean by that. It says we're going to be kept in peace. We're not going to be, our feathers aren't going to be so ruffled if our minds are steadfast, because they trust in us, and we trust in God. So therefore, if I'm currently a ball of anxiety, a ball of tension, if I'm currently that, well, then my mind is probably not in the right place. And if my mind's not in the right place, guess why? Because I'm probably not trusting God. And so I kind of go backward through the verse and go, what is it in my life right now that's driving me crazy, that's making me insane, that's making me anxious, making me fearful, making me tense and angry? What are the things in my life? And then I can wind them back usually and go, man, I must not trust God in that equation. Because if, in fact, we're trusting God, our minds will be steadfast, immovable would be another word for that. And that will result in our hearts being at peace.
That's a beautiful way to say that, and a great goal. It doesn't have to be, I'm thinking about our kids, where it doesn't have to be, like in your son's case, that's a clear contrast to go, just bought a car, put $600 into it, then it got wrecked right immediately afterwards. You reminded me one time I went and got my windshield fixed from a rock driving away from the place. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. Another rock.
Yeah.
And so that's like, what? Who
Did you just turn around? Did you just go straight back?
I totally went right back. But so in your son's case, there's an easy contrast to go, okay, it's a money problem, it's a car problem. I'm laughing about it. I'm not hurt. I'm not on the way to the hospital. But it doesn't have to be some major ordeal. God works in all these little things too. It can be like it can be a disappointment. He doesn't make the baseball team tryouts, or in our case, our girls do in their lives, they've done a lot of auditioning. Most recently, Abigail traveled to New York to do another audition, and we talked about, she and I had a conversation, me and her and Audrey, about holding it loosely, not with this white knuckle tight grip, because when we do that, that is us exerting our what we feel is our own power over something. We're trying so hard to control it. And I think, I wonder sometimes, is God teaching us to let go? Sometimes he whispers. He can just whisper like, "Hey, I got this. Let go." And then we do, and boom, it just falls right into place. Other times in my life anyway, there's been times where he's had to like smack my hand, like, pay attention, let go of this. In fact, I'm going to rip it out of your hand. Um, it's a long, long time ago, and I think we've talked about it before. But when I lost my job at the time, way back when, and I've had setbacks in career and other things, but this one just was a lesson to me that I had to learn the hard way. And it was a whole lot of other things wrapped up into the loss of my job. There was ego involved. There was money lesson, and through that, as Audrey and I, and at the time the girls were little babies, he showed me and Audrey what it means when you are out of control. We had zero. We didn't have our hands on the wheel anymore. In fact, the steering wheel had been taken away.
Where's that steering wheel?
Right. And so it was, and I think the reason he did that is because I've been hard-headed before. And, I've also been very egocentric, where it's mine to do. And, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to accomplish this, and I'm going to be the one in control, and therefore fix it and become the hero.
Right.
And I didn't even have a wheel to hold, so he literally had to say, "You just sit there. I've got this. I'm going to show you some things."
Yeah.
Now, I want to go back to a point that we were making before, where in the learning of this, we have to be open to receive it. We have to have our eyes open and looking for him to help us with that, like perspective. Zoom out and go, what am I missing? What's he showing me in this? What is the lesson that's potential for me to latch on to in this environment, in this current situation, or in what my kid is doing, or what the kid missed out on, or maybe they made a bad grade, or, like I failed out of college and had to go home having made all F's and wasted. That's true.
Oh, I thought you were saying it like, hey, what if this happened to somebody?
I actually failed out of my first year of college.
Something I did not know about you.
Yeah. I mean, I was a lot of fun to be around.
Dude, you're like the guy in Animal House, 0.0.
Oh, that was a long time ago, but
wow.
Yeah, and my mom met me at the doorstep when I got home, and I had lied. I had made up stories about, college was hard, and
the whole package.
I was doing everything I possibly could, and trying so hard, and I was just total BS, just lying. And so she met me. So I was by basically having to, the dean of students was like, you can't come back. This is over for you. So I was found out in that, I had to go home with my tail between my legs, and mom met me at the front door and said, "You're welcome here. It's a safe place. It's $700 a month, and your groceries are on you." And being a silly, hard-headed dude at the time, still, I was like, okay, that's fine. I didn't want to go to college anyway. I want to go work. I want to go work in a body shop.
Wow.
And make money. And I'm gonna find a craft, and that's what's gonna, sustain me. And it was one of the really good lessons, and a good parenting lesson, that it wasn't just immediate. I was forgiven. She still loved me, mom and dad both, but the lesson hadn't been learned. And so they were going to help me with that. And I think God does that too, in some ways, where sometimes we ask for the help.
Yeah.
Sometimes we ask for the lesson. In my case, a couple of times in my life, I haven't asked for it, but he showed me anyway, and did it the hard way. And so as a dad, we think about our kids and how open are our children to receiving a lesson from us / God in the moment, depending on how you're handling that, massaging that, and communicating with them. And so openness, my point in all of this is, how open are we in these situations to model for our family, model for our kids that a mistake can result in a lesson. Sometimes it's out of our control and we still get the lesson. He still graces us with the ability to learn how he is the one that we need to rely on, not ourselves.
Yeah. You know, what's amazing is I hadn't planned on sharing this today, but you led me back to this verse. I'm doing a book study right now on the names of God. So Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Rapha, all these different names of God in the Old Testament. And I'm in the section on God being a healer. And there was a verse in Isaiah 19. It says, and the Lord will strike Egypt, striking but healing, which is an interesting contrast if you think about it. Then it says, so they will return to the Lord. So he will bring calamity into their life, but for the purpose of them returning to him. It's not just because he's trying to make a statement. It is so that it's redemptive. It's meant to be attractive. It's like when we discipline our kids, it's not to be done in anger, and it's not to be done just because, you know, they wrecked the house or they broke mom's favorite dish or whatever that we're disciplining them for. It is so that they would come back and be obedient or be repentant or change their ways or not get all F's the next semester like Lawson. And so the idea would be for us as dads, are we going through that and are we modeling that? So for you know, dad, you just lost your job, or you got a tough boss to deal with, or you didn't get the vote on that committee at your church, or whatever your current, you know, problem du jour is. Can you pull out of just the things that are going on and instead observe and zoom out, as Lawson said, zoom out and see the lesson that God's trying to teach you, not your wife, not your kids, not, I sure hope that guy learns his lesson. No, I hope you learn your lesson. I hope I learn my lesson. And because here's what I can do then. I can then go and take that as my kids get older, right in their teen years. I can go and say, man, I had this really tough situation. And, but I think what God's trying to show me through this is that I could be more patient, or that I need to learn to rely on him, not me, or that, you know, whatever. And then you're having a conversation with your children that's both transparent and vulnerable, but it's educational, it's spiritual. Like, we can get out of the, well, I wish that so-and-so would have got elected, or I wish, you know, I would have gotten money X, or my boss Y, or that in-law of mine. Whoa, time out, back it up. What's God trying to show you through all that drama and that challenge in your life? And what's funny is, maybe he's been trying to show you for like 25 straight years, and it continues to happen because he continues to go, well, you know, I'll take another run up this hill next year because it seems like Kent sure ain't learning the lesson. And that's happened to me, right? I mean, I have been this week, I yelled at my kids about something. And what's funny is, here's what's really funny. I was yelling about these two successive super loud noises that happened, yelling, and my wife just goes, you know, the loud noise that I don't want to hear is your voice yelling at the kids. And I'm like, wow, thank you. Cause exactly. Here we are again. Like, how many times have I been on that particular, oh goodness, I've done that so often. And so God continues to show me, hey man, man's anger does not bring about the righteousness of God. James 1:19 and 20, be slow to anger, be quick to listen, slow to speak. So as we're learning these lessons, sometimes God's trying to teach us the same lesson over and over again. And that may be why you find yourself holding the same bag over and over and over again, because God finally is going, hey man, if you ever learn this lesson, I just might stop sending you that same problem.
You know what? You can gain some real peace too, dude. And I think I want to close on this. What we can help our children understand in these moments where either we learn it or we're helping, you know, them see God's lesson so that they learn something. Psalm 16:8. I love this. It says, I have set the Lord always before me. because he is at my right hand. I will not be shaken. I imagine, a lot of times I physically imagine holding his hand, and like that is such a reassurance to me. And it says, if you set the Lord before you and you take him, he is at your right hand, you hold his hand, I will not be shaken. And I think that's a great lesson for us as dads to think about when we are encountering something or our kids are encountering something, to say, look, we're not going to be shaken. You know why? Because God is going before us. He is holding our hand. We are going to get through this. And so, little guy that just didn't make the team, or got maybe it is a traumatic sickness or injury or something like that, you can still say, look, I'm going to hold your hand and God's going to hold both of our hands. He's going before us. He's got this figured out. He's in control. We won't be shaken, and we are going to get something out of this. God is right here with us. So dads, I hope this has been good for you. I hope this has been helpful. Kent and I always want to have some sort of like, hopefully you end this show, you listen to the end of this episode and go, oh, God's right here with us, and he is going to get us through this. And as we continue to be a father on purpose, our purpose will be fulfilled as long as we are holding the hand of our Heavenly Father.
Hey, Dad, thank you for listening to today's show. If you found this episode helpful, remember, you can get all the content and show notes at manhoodjourney.org/podcast. And if you really liked it, please consider doing 3 things. Number 1, share this podcast with someone. You can hit the share button in your app, wherever you listen to podcasts, or just call a person up and tell them to listen in. Number 2, subscribe to this podcast so you get episodes automatically. That helps us as well to help dads find the show. You can do that through your favorite listening app, whatever that is. And finally, review this podcast. Leave us a review, good or bad, wherever you listen. Those reviews also help other dads find the show. You can always learn more about what we're up to at manhoodjourney.org or fatheronpurpose.org. We will see you next week.